Angie, let me get up. Hey nerds, welcome back to my channel. Today we're doing another episode of Reading Rouge, the series on my channel where I simultaneously put on my makeup and do a book review. In today's episode, we're gonna be going over The Hate U Give by Angie Thomas. But before we get into that, I want to thank you guys so much for being here. I really appreciate it. Now let's get into this. I know I've been gone for a long time. Y'all, I needed to rest. I needed to rest. I don't know what was going on with my energy, but your girl was tired. I've also been trying to read a lot more because, like I said, I'm trying to hit a goal by the end of this year. And I'm not gonna lie, it took me so long to take notes for this because I forgot how long this book is and how, Jesus Christ, why? Forgot how long this book is and I forgot how detailed it is. So I'm gonna open it up and read the book jacket so I can give you guys an overview. 16-year-old Star Carter moves between two worlds. The poor black neighborhood where she lives and the fancy suburban prep school she attends. The uneasy balance between these worlds is shattered when Star witnesses the fatal shooting of her childhood best friend Khalil at the hands of a police officer. Khalil was unarmed. Soon afterward, Khalil's death is a national headline. Some are calling him a thug, maybe even a drug dealer and a gangbanger. Star's best friend at school suggests he may have had it coming. When it becomes clear the police have little interest in investigating the incident, protesters take to the streets and Star's neighborhood becomes a war zone. What everyone wants to know is, what really went down that night? And the only person alive who can answer that is Star. But what Star does or does not say could destroy her community. It could also endanger her life. So yeah, that is the rundown of what happens in this story. Alright, like we always do, I am going to go over the entire plot. So this video is going to be long. So get comfy, grab a snack or two or three. You know, just get a whole meal and just settle in. I don't even ask y'all anymore if y'all want me to do the whole plot or not because every time I ask y'all, y'all say the whole plot. So whole plot it is. A little context before we jump into the story. I know, I'm sorry. I read this book for the first time ever in my life at the tail end of last year. I know I'm late. I did it on purpose. 9 times out of 10, I will deliberately ignore popular media so I can consume it in peace without, you know, outside opinions. And this book is a prime example of me doing that. All right, let's jump into the plot. There are parts. Okay, parts and chapters. You ready? I'm ready too. So this is part 1, When It Happens. Chapter 1. Our story starts with Star showing up to a party she don't even want to be at. It's giving Alessia Cara's Here. It's giving Ed Sheeran's I Don't Care. She don't want to be at this party. She's here with her friend Kenya, who is only at this party to confront a girl about some high school drama. Kenya claims Star is uppity because she goes to Williamson Prep, and that is a PWI private school. But Star actually lives in Garden Heights. It's the hood, okay? And I'm gonna say this a lot throughout this video, so just, you know, guard your loins. Star reminds me so much of myself, especially at that age. I gotta make sure I'm getting moisture in every part of my skin because your girl be dry sometimes. And the only reason that Star is even with Kenya, or she hangs out with Kenya, is because they share a brother named Seven. They share a half brother, excuse me. Star and Seven share a dad, and Kenya and Seven share a mom. Star tells us that everyone in Garden Heights knows her from working at her dad's store, but it's mostly her dad. And we'll get to that in a second. And Star feels super out of place because she doesn't know anybody here but Kenya. And she also feels like she's being judged by Kenya's friends because she has friends from Williamson. Star tells us at Williamson she's automatically granted like coolness or swag because she's the token black girl. She's one of 2 black girls actually, but you know how that goes. As long as she doesn't act like a black girl. Whereas in Garden Heights, you have to earn your coolness, your respect, your street cred. Just when Star is starting to feel truly alone at this party, she spots Khalil. This is her childhood best friend who she may or may not have a little flame for. She might carry a torch. She views him as family, but she also finds him cute. It's complicated. So Star and Khalil are catching up, and she finds out that Khalil's grandmother has cancer. And then he just says that his mom is doing good for now. He says that because Khalil's mother is a drug addict. Oh, wrong color. And when Khalil tells Star that he's been busy, she cringes because she has a feeling that he been dealing drugs. And their banter and just the way they conversate with each other is so organic. It's like they're siblings. I don't want to like say that because they have a thing for each other, but they were raised together, so it's just like, you know, you don't want to make it weird. They even share a bond over shoes, like, you know, comparing their Jordans to one another. Star loves to collect Jordans, honey, especially the vintage ones. Khalil says that he needs to talk to her dad about something, but he doesn't tell her what. And at that moment, there's a somebody is lighting the party up. They shooting over here. Star's like, this is exactly why I don't be coming to these parties, because it's always some shit. Khalil tells Star that the gunshots probably came from, you know, the two rival gangs that showed up at the party. There's the King Lords and the Garden Disciples. And Star knows all about that because her own father used to be a King Lord, but he got out of the life. So Khalil and Star are driving away from the scene, and Khalil turns on some rap music. Old school rap, and Star starts to clown him. And here's where the title of the book comes into play. This is when Khalil tells Star what thug life means. The hate you give little infants fucks everyone. Meaning whatever negativity you pour into the youth of our society, it's gonna come back to bite you in the ass later. So Star confronts Khalil about being busy, and he deflects. She finds out that shortly after Khalil's grandmother got sick, she was laid off from her job. So he had to do something to provide for his family, and working at her father's store was not paying the bills. And for a brief moment there, Star and Khalil reminisce over their childhood, including their dear friend Natasha. We'll get to that in a second. Then they see blue and red lights in the rear view. When I was reading this, I remember audibly saying, "Fuck," and that's where this chapter ends. Chapter 2 opens with Star telling us at the age of 12, both her parents had a conversation with her. One combo being The Birds and the Bees, delivered by her mother, Lisa. The other combo being What to Do When a Cop Pulls You Over, delivered by her father, Maverick. Maverick's probably like my favorite character in this book, like not gonna hold y'all. He's also known around the block as Big Mav. And her mom opposed this at the time, and she was like, yo, Star is too young to be having this conversation with you. Mav clapped back and said, well, she's not too young to be arrested or shot. True, sad but true. He tells her 3 very important things. Keep your hands visible, don't make any sudden moves, and only speak to the cop when you are spoken to. So the cop approaches the car, and he asks Khalil for his license and registration, you know, the whole 9. Khalil immediately ask, what you pulling me over for? Meanwhile, Star's in the passenger seat pleading with him to comply because the tension, it's already there. While all this is happening, Star is taking mental notes of the cop that has pulled them over. She calls him 115 due to his badge number. She also takes note of his appearance. White man, mid-30s to mid-40s, buzz cut, scar above his top lip. It's obvious this cop is racially profiling Khalil, and he's patting him down for drugs and weapons. And Star tries to speak up for Khalil, but 115 yells at her to be quiet. And Star also tells us that her parents didn't raise her to fear cops, but to be weary of them. As 115 goes back to his car to run Khalil's license, Khalil moves from the spot that he was told not to move from and sticks his head into the driver's side window to check on Star. Then there's a gunshot and another. This dirty ass cop shot Khalil. For Star, this brings back a memory of watching her friend Natasha die right in front of her. And as you can imagine, this shatters Star. So against what her father has taught her to do in situations like this, she hops out of the car and races to Khalil's side. Unfortunately, Khalil does not make it. Star doesn't even have the chance to cry or scream again or even hug Khalil because now 1 of 15 has the gun pointed at her. Chapter 3, and Khalil's death is now an active crime scene. His body is still laying in the street as we speak. Star is sitting there in shock until the reality of the situation starts to hit her and she begins to have a panic attack. Both of her parents are there to comfort her and they take her home. She is literally so devastated and sickened by Khalil's death that she vomits everywhere. I love the way her parents were there to support her and care for her in this moment. Her mom bathes her, her dad carries her to her bed, and her mom stays in her room until she falls asleep. As Star lays in her bed, she recalls the day that Natasha died. Star was only 10 years old when she saw her best friend get shot in the middle of a gang-related shooting. Star survived by falling into a nearby rose bush, but Natasha was too deep in the crossfire. Star also recalls the events of the night before, and Natasha and Khalil's death starts to blur together. She wakes up and she stirs up the courage to join her family for breakfast, and it's here that we learn her family are Christians and Muslims. Lisa is a member of the Christ Temple Church, and Maverick believes in Black Jesus and the Black Panthers 10-point program. I'm only bringing this up because it's very much relevant. As Star is sitting there eating breakfast with her family, she tells them that Khalil wasn't even armed. And Star is also worried what will happen when Khalil's death becomes national news. And no one knows that she was there with him the night he died other than herself, her parents, and 115. And then the family agrees right then and there to not tell the youngest sibling in the family, Sakani. Star is feeling very guilty right now because she always promised to speak up against police brutality, but now she can't find the courage to do so. It's later now, and Star is telling us how she just wants to stay home and watch her favorite show of all time, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. She relates to the theme song a little bit. When Natasha was killed, her parents got scared. But instead of sending her to live with a rich aunt and uncle, they sent her and her brothers to Williamson Prep. And Star wishes that she could fully be herself, just like Will is in the show. Because if I'm not mistaken, he also goes to a PWI. She also wants to stay home because she wants to return calls to a person named Chris. Chris is Star's boyfriend. Her white boyfriend. And she considers calling her friends Haley and Maya as well. Star tells us about the time where she invited Haley and Maya over to her house for a sleepover. Mind you, Haley and Maya live in the rich ass suburbs and big ass houses, right? Star lives in Garden Heights, and there's definitely a cultural barrier. And she decided then and there, like after the sleepover debacle, because it didn't end well, she would keep her two lives separate. So Star goes with her dad to open the store. Her dad has a store, if you didn't catch on. And he gets into a small spat with the barber, Mr. Lewis. And Mr. Lewis blames Maverick for Khalil's death because he allows quote-unquote thugs to work in his store. Then Khalil's grandma comes by. Her name is Miss Rosalie, and Maverick offers to help pay for the funeral. Another customer comes by and they comment on Star's beauty, and Maverick half-jokingly says she can't date till she's 40. Little does Maverick know, Star already has a white man's at that, and she know her father will not approve. This man follows the Black Panther 10-point program. What you think he gonna say? Plus, her mama already knows about him, so he can't know. Kenya comes by the store and she and Star go to grab some lunch. Star tells us about this habit that Kenya has about calling Seven my brother. Remember, her and Star share him as a half brother, and that annoys the shit out of her because, like, girl, that's our brother. That is my brother too. Like, do you mean my brother? After they get lunch, a car rolls up on Star and Kenya. It's King, Kenya's dad, active member of the King Lords. I think he's like the leader or some shit. And Star despises him because he's abusive to Seven and his sisters and his mother, his birth mother, that is. King tries to spot Star some money, give her a little gift, but she declines due to her morals. Luckily, her father was right behind her to endorse that, you know, decline, like, girl, we don't want your money. Maverick doesn't like King either. Maverick actually was King's right-hand man back when he was an active gang member. King asks Maverick if he can hold on to some product for him, and Maverick says hell no. And he's told King time and time again that he is no longer in the life and he ain't down with the shenanigans. And King tries to get loud with Maverick, but he shut that down real quick. He was like, sir, I did 3 years in the pen for you, not too much. And he get even louder. He's like, put your hands on my son again, see what happens. King then indirectly threatens him and he's gone. Chapter 4 in this chapter opens with Star having a nightmare about Khalil and Natasha. She wakes up and she heads to the kitchen, but she stops when she hears family talking. And her Uncle Carlos is here. This is Lisa's brother and he is also a cop. Uncle Carlos tells Star's parents that he wants her to testify. Her parents are against it and basically Carlos says, don't make it a race thing. Mav is like, but it literally is a race thing. And from what I remember, like from reading this a while back, it seems, and I'm saying it seems that Uncle Carlos is. So the argument transitions into another about Carlos telling Lisa to move the kids out of Garden Heights. Maverick says absolutely not. Lisa and Maverick tell Carlos like, listen, we don't want anyone to know that Star was there like when the shooting happened. Star interjects, finally giving up her position, and she's like, listen, I will only do it if it will bring Khalil justice. And also, I will only do it if I don't have to look at 115's face. Uncle Carlos swears that he will protect Star, and Maverick is not happy. So after Uncle Carlos leaves, Star asks her dad, you know, why y'all got beef? Why y'all always fighting with each other all the time? Like, what's going on? Maverick tells Star that Carlos, like when he first got together with Lisa, he thought that he was a bad influence on his little sister. And Star tells us that when her father went away to prison for those 3 years, Uncle Carlos was like a second father to her. Maverick then tells Star that he lost a cousin and she was born right after that cousin died. The cousin died in a drug deal gone wrong. And then he tells her the reason he named her Star because she was his light in all that darkness. Best book dad ever, top 5 for sure. That is so sweet and thoughtful and oh my god. The next day, Star and her parents go over to Miss Rosalie's house to bring her some food during this hard time and also to, you know, just give their condolences. And as you can imagine, a lot of memories are flooding back for Star. And Miss Rosalie assures Star that she was Khalil's best friend, the only real friend that he had. And Miss Rosalie confirmed that Khalil was indeed selling that shit. And that's why he was so busy. And Star is upset because this very fact alone will not only dehumanize him, but render him a hashtag. Even though Star is angry that Khalil didn't tell her, she knows that he was loved and a good person no matter what the world will think. All right, chapter 5, back to school for Star. And this is also the same day that she has to sit down with the detectives because she got to go in for questioning. Lisa takes the kids to school and she tells Star if it's too much for her today, just let her know. Star meets up with her friend Maya and she asks her, girl, why you ain't text me back? None of her friends know about the shooting. And then Star listens to all her privileged friends whine and bitch and complain and moan about their extravagant spring break activities, again bringing Star back down to earth. Star tells us that Haley has been acting funny ever since she posted a picture of Emmett Till on her Tumblr, you know, in the name of advocacy, and Haley unfollowed her after that. So Star makes her way to her first class and she sees Chris there waiting for her. The reason why Star didn't return Chris's calls is because they got into it, but she doesn't tell us why yet. That doesn't stop Star from admitting that she misses him. Oh my goodness. Chris is also a sneakerhead, and that's one of the many things that him and Star have in common. He's pleading with her to talk, but Star will not budge. And she finally tells us that the reason why she is mad at Chris is because before she went to that party with Kenya, she was at Chris's house hanging out, and they was fooling around, right? So in the middle of them fooling around, Chris whips out a condom. And Star was like, baby, I don't know what you thought this was, but this ain't that. And Star has a very real fear of becoming a teen mom, and that is so fair, because a lot of the girls from where she's from, they already got kids. So in turn, she went off on Chris because he knew that she was not ready for that. So to cheer her up, Chris starts singing the theme song to Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and that cracks Star. Wait me. The show is another thing they have in common. Chris even calls Star his fresh princess. I still haven't decided if that's cute or cringy. And she tells us that at Williamson, he's the only person that she doesn't have to pretend with. She says that with a grain of salt because she's still like, you know, being a fake version of herself, but you know, not as much with Chris. And when Chris grabs her hand, she has a flashback of Khalil getting shot. And then she becomes uncomfortably aware of how white Chris is. He's as white as 115, and she starts crying. After school is over, Seven picks up Star and Takani, and they go over to their mom's place of work. They bring lunch for their mom so they can eat with her, but there's a commotion going on out front. I wish this part was in the movie. It turns out there's a woman in the front named Brenda causing a scene. This is Khalil's mother, and she's openly grieving her son. Lisa prompts her to go to rehab so she can get the help that she needs. And Star is furious that Brenda even has the nerve to act this way because she wasn't there for Khalil. Lisa gets on that ass and says, despite all that, Brenda is still Khalil's mother. The old generation loves to say that they could do the most heinous thing to you and be like, I'm still your mom, I'm still your dad. Okay, what they got to do with it? Chapter 6, and Star and Lisa have arrived at the police station, and Star is on the brink of another panic attack. They putting our girl through too much, and she can't help but notice, you know, all of the guns she sees, and she notices how there's only 2 of them and like 30 cops. Lisa starts to take Star home, but Star insists that she does this today. So the detective comes in and refers to Khalil's death as the incident. Star's like, no honey, call a spade, his death. There was a shooting and he was the person that was shot. Like, quit trying to sugarcoat shit. This is not the time nor the place, and I'm not the one. And the entire time Star is speaking with the detective, she remembers everything her father taught her when it comes to the police. And Star tells the full truth of what happened that night, leaving no room for speculation. She even got a little snippy with the detective. I get it because 1, why are you asking stupid questions? And 2, she watched her best friend die in front of her. The detective asked Star if she knew if Khalil sold drugs. Star calls the detective out for irrelevancy and tells her no. Lisa then interjects, A1 mom, and she's like, why haven't you asked my daughter about the police officer that shot her friend? Star outright says 115 killed him. So Star and Lisa leave the station, and they're not very confident that justice will come easily for Khalil. Chapter 7, Khalil's funeral is approaching, and the news finally released his name to the public. But they labeled him as the suspected drug dealer and left out the fact that he was unarmed. Star's currently in gym class, and she tells us that Chris is forgiven, but his skin color is still nagging at her. She feels like a traitor to her people, not only for, you know, being hesitant to speak up for Khalil, but for dating a white boy. Star and her friends are playing a game of basketball against Chris and his friends. And Star's having a little trouble keeping up because she had a hefty lunch and the boys are beating them. Those of you who already read this or have seen the movie, you know what's coming. And if you haven't, let me read it to you. Damn it, Star, Haley yells, recovering the ball. She passes it to me. Hustle, pretend the ball is some fried chicken, bet you'll stay on it then. What the actual fuck? The world surges forward without me. I hold the ball and stare at Haley as she jogs away, blue streaked hair bouncing behind her. I can't believe she said she couldn't have. No way. The ball falls out of my hands. I walk off the court. I'm breathing hard and my eyes burn. The smell of post-game funk lingers in the girls' locker room. It's my place of solace when we lose a game, where I can cry or cuss if I want. I pace from one side of the lockers to the other. Haley and Maya rush in out of breath. What's up with you? Haley asks. Me? I say, my voice bouncing off the lockers. What the hell was that comment? Lighten up, it was only game talk. A fried chicken joke was only game talk? Really? I ask. It's fried chicken day, she says. You and Maya were just joking about it. What are you trying to say? I keep pacing. Her eyes widen. oh my God, you think I was being racist? I look at her. You made a fried chicken comment to the only black girl in the room. What do you think? Holy shit, Star, seriously? After everything we've been through, you think I'm a racist? Really? You can say something racist and not be a racist. Yeah, it went there. Haley and Maya asked what's been going on because she's been acting strange. And they're like, is it because that person got killed in your neighborhood? The news has begun to spread. Star lies and says she doesn't know Khalil. As Star's basketball coach sends her to the school therapist, she fears her friends and her boyfriend have not only seen her as the angry black girl, but also the weak black girl. All because she shed a tear or two. So she calls Uncle Carlos to come and get her because her parents would be suspicious if she called them. She's also faking sick so she can get out of school. So she's with Uncle Carlos now, and she questions if she's even worthy to attend his funeral. Uncle Carlos encourages her to go because she will regret it if she doesn't. But he knows for a fact that he cannot go because he's a cop and the attendees want nothing to do with him. Now this is where I started to get pissed off. Where is my goddamn lip liner? Star realizes that Uncle Carlos is on a first name basis with 115 and knows him personally, so of course this makes her uncomfortable. So Star puts him on blast and she was like, if that were you, would you have killed Khalil? He don't answer. Answer the question, Carlos. Then Star confessed that 115 pulled his gun on her, and this tore Uncle Carlos up. He apologizes to her, but he knows it's not enough. Chapter 8, Star is telling us that funerals are actually for the living, not the dead. It doesn't matter which songs are sung or what the preacher preaches. Star knows Khalil ain't coming back. While this is true, I hate that this teenage girl, this child, has this morbid and depressing view. She says that Khalil doesn't even look like himself, like he's a mannequin. I've been to a few funerals in my day, and I remember this exact distinct look of the person in the casket. Star still feels unworthy of being at Khalil's funeral, so imagine how uncomfortable she feels when her family is sat in the front row. So the funeral starts and a few people come up to the front to say, you know, nice things about Khalil. And an activist from this organization called Just Us for Justice, a woman named April Ofra, comes up to the mic and she tells the congregation that the police department does not intend to arrest 115 for the murder of Khalil, and everyone is pissed. And she also tells the congregation that Khalil was unarmed. So April asks the congregation to join her after the service for a peaceful march right to the cemetery. And the police station just happens to be en route. And Star has a feeling that April will want to speak to her soon. And then there's a commotion at the back of the church. King and his boys then came up in this funeral service acting a goddamn fool. Plumb fool for the circus. And Seven's mama, her name is Aisha, she is wearing a dress way too short for the church house. So King and his boys come down the aisle and they place a gray bandana on top of Khalil's chest, signifying the King Lord's colors. Star's heart drops to her ass because she's thinking, was my best friend a King Lord? Ms. Rosalie said, hell no, and snatched that bandana up with the quickness. So her and King get to arguing, and in the heat of this argument, we find out that King offered to pay for the funeral, but she declined because she didn't want the devil's money. And I would decline the offer too. No one wants to owe a drug lord if she don't support the gang banging. So in the midst of this, Star decides to tell us how Seven was born. When they were young, Maverick and Lisa were fighting, so they were broken up for a small period of time, and King hooked Mav up with one of his girls for a session. And then 9 months later, here comes Seven. And then Star also tells us that Khalil was like her first crush ever, but we kind of already knew that from the beginning of the book. How they was bantering and flirting with each other, yeah, we knew. So after the service is over, Maverick takes Seven into Connie to go march, and Lisa takes Star home. But before they can leave, April approaches Star and congratulates her on her bravery for speaking to the detective. We find out that April is also a lawyer, and she offers her services to Star. April tells Star, you know, whenever you're ready, feel free to reach out, but Star doesn't know if she ever will be. Chapter 9, and Maverick is staying at the store because they done started rioting in Garden Heights. And in the middle of the family saying grace over dinner, they hear gunshots ringing out throughout the neighborhood. The kids are forced to take cover in the den. And as they're watching the news, they see people, taking it to the streets and protesting, and police, they're throwing tear gas. It's too much. And they also reveal to the public that a witness has spoken to the police, aka Star. And when Maverick gets home that night, Lisa expresses to him that she wants the family to move, but he doesn't acknowledge it. Star wakes up from another nightmare, and Seven wants her to come and play basketball with him. And Star feels that if the public were to find out that she's the witness, that they blame her for the police's decision. So Star and Seven get to the park and they're playing basketball, and all of a sudden 2 garden disciples roll up on him trying to mug him. And they accuse Seven of repping the Kings, but he swears that he's neutral. He ain't in none of that. And he's not. And just when things are about to get thick, a boy who is a King Lord comes up and saves Star and Seven. Turns out his name was Devontae for short, and Seven actually knows him. And he's the guy that Kenya was trying to start a fight over at that party. Just then, here come Maverick, pulling up. Mad as hell. Apparently, Star and Seven left the house without telling anyone. And he's mad because you left the house without telling anyone. And it's not safe for y'all to be outside because people are still rioting in the streets. Maverick even accuses Seven of, kinging, aka repping the King Lords. So they get home and both of the parents lay into their asses for going out in the middle of a war zone because, yeah, what the fuck was y'all doing? I will say this, I like how Lisa and Maverick were a team during this moment of discipline, and they didn't, undercut each other. And as punishment, Maverick takes Seven to the store to work with him, and Lisa takes Star to her Uncle Carlos's house. FYI, Chris lives down the street from Uncle Carlos. Yes, they're in the same suburb. So they're riding in the car, and Star sees all the people protesting in the streets. And she's full of regret because she's not out there with them. Lisa then tells Star the story of how she got pregnant with her, and they somehow, some way reconcile over that. They get to Uncle Carlos's house, and Chris comes over to check on her. And Star tells Chris she's really not mad at him about the whole condom situation. So he asks, okay, so what's the real reason? But she won't tell him. So Chris is in his feelings now because he's like, okay, so you can be mad at me and give me the silent treatment, but you won't even tell me why. So Star tells him that he doesn't get it. Like, babe, we come from different racial and socioeconomic backgrounds. And she basically sat there and called him a privileged white boy. Chris is like, baby, I don't care about any of that. I only care about you. This is not the time. Star's like, boy, that stuff is a part of who I am, and that's not gonna change. Then he's like, well, help me understand. And they make up just like that. They kids. And that's where this chapter ends. Chapter 10, it's the next day. Lisa, Star, and Sakani are on the way home, and they're stopped by a police roadblock. Star notices that each car is being stopped by a cop, checking licenses. So she begins to panic because Khalil's death is still, has her shaken up, and the whole time she's just hearing her father's advice in the back of her head. They get home, and Maverick notices how shaken up Star is, so to take her mind off it, he takes her with him to go stock up for stuff that he needs for the store. They happen to be listening to rap music, and Mav mentions Thug Life, and he asks Star, how do you interpret this acronym? She tells him that Khalil taught her about it and what she thinks. This conversation ends with Star and her father coming to an agreement that they cannot be silent or things won't change. So they get back to stock the store, and they see Devontae banging on the window to get in. Mav reluctantly lets him in, but only gives him 5 minutes. Star notices how skittish and disheveled Devontae looks, so she knows something is wrong. Turns out Devontae is hiding from someone. The deal is King wants him to spin the block on the people who killed his brother, but he can't bring himself to do it. So Devontae asks Mav, how did you get out of the life? And we find out that Mav's father, Adonis Carter, aka Big Don, was also a King Lord. And his answer was the hard way. And at first I thought he got jumped out. The real reason is he took the fall for King and he went to jail for him instead. And that's how he got let out. And Devontae pleads with Mav to help him, leave the gang. And Mav only agrees if he promises to never ever do it again. So to help him out, Mav hires him on the spot, much to Star's dismay. This is basically her sworn enemy for some reason. Later that night, Mav makes the decision that Vontae is gonna stay with them for a little while. And Lisa accuses Mav of this being his second do-over with Khalil, because Khalil went down the same exact path, asked him for help. He hired him to work with at the store, and yeah. And Lisa is against this because it's putting their family directly in the middle of a war. Lisa suggests again that they move again, but Mav is appalled or opposed to it because, you know, if we leave Garden Heights, we're turning our back on the people. Which I get, but sir, you are not responsible for the entirety of the hood. Like, yes, the tree run deep, but your family comes first. And this chapter ends with Lisa basically saying, I am moving my babies out of this hellhole, with or without you. And Star is fearful yet again because after everything that's happened, she doesn't know if she can handle her parents splitting up. Chapter 11, and Star is back at school and everyone is acting strange. So Haley and Maya fill her in on what's going on. There's going to be a protest today for Khalil. And there's a group chat floating around, you know, with this info, and clearly some people are doing it for the wrong reasons, some of which is to just skip class. And one of those people is Haley. Haley gets fly at the mouth and calls Khalil a drug dealer, and that pisses Star off. So Chris finally puts two and two together and asks Star, did you know Khalil? And she finally fesses up and tells him yes. Star stays behind in class because it's the only thing keeping her from losing her cool. After school, the children go to the store to help Mav, and they see a reporter is setting up shop right in front of Mr. Lewis's barbershop. And turns out they're here because a couple of cops got jumped around the corner by some king lords. When the camera starts rolling and Mr. Lewis immediately starts to snitching on the king lords, which is a big no-no. And Mr. Lewis says he's not scared because he's been through worse during segregation. So Mav gets to lecturing Mr. Lewis how stupid that was, and a couple of cops pull up to the scene. Mr. Lewis is insisting that everything is fine, but the police are not listening. So they check Mav's ID and they realize that he's related to Star, and they also realize that Star is the witness. So the cops make Mav get on the ground and they are kneeling on this man's back. Mind you, he did nothing. The neighbors come out to watch and see what's going on, and when the cops try to clear the crowd, they're like, no, we're not going anywhere. And all of his kids are watching, and this is a very disturbing moment. And Star finds out that someone from Garden Heights saw her and her mom leaving the police station. So they know that she's the witness. And Kenya's here at the store shopping, and she's being very insensitive towards Star about not speaking up. She's not in her shoes, but she thinks Star is trying to hide it. And this chapter ends with Maverick giving his daughter some words of encouragement. Chapter 12, and Star walks outside to see a tank rolling through the streets. Yes, like the ones that they drive in the military, a full-on tank going down the street like an ice cream truck. And because of all the riots lately, Garden Heights has been placed under a curfew. It seems that Star's parents have made up, and she breaks her Tumblr hiatus to post about Khalil. Her post starts to get a lot of attention, and it motivates her even more and more to keep speaking up for Khalil. And she finally grasps an understanding of what Khalil was trying to tell her with Tupac's lyrics. Then later on, Star finds out that Aisha kicked Seven out because King told her to. Remember, Aisha is Seven's birth mom. Maya reaches out to Star, and she wants their whole friend group to have a chat because things have been weird. And by weird, she means Haley being racist. And it's annoying Star that Maya is always trying to be Switzerland in these situations. Lisa then tells Star that the DA wants to talk to her about Khalil's death, and Star has decided that she is ready to talk. Later that day, Star and her parents go to the Just Us for Justice HQ. The HQ is an abandoned Taco Bell. Yeah. April informs Star that the DA will bring Khalil's case to a grand jury, and they will decide whether or not to indict 115. And Star's apprehensive of speaking to the DA because she's unsure if Khalil even had a gun, even though he told her he had nothing on him. And April confirms that the gun 115 saw was actually a hairbrush. Star also finds out that there will be a televised interview explaining 115's side of the story. Utter, complete, total bullshit. This angers Star so deeply, but it motivates her as well to speak for Khalil. April offers to represent Star pro bono, okay, and will give her an anonymous televised interview. And as Star is leaving Just Us for Justice with her parents, Mav gets a call and they gotta go. immediately. Vontae called him and it doesn't sound good. Chapter 13, and it turns out Mr. Lewis shouldn't have snitched the way he did because the King Lords have beat him up. Mind you, Mr. Lewis is an old man. He an elder. When I read this for the first time, I thought they got 7. I was like, no, not 7 too, please. But that's not all that happened. Mr. Lewis heard King tell his boys, next time they see Vontae, kill him on sight. And Mav is pissed, so he's taking his anger out on Vontae, and he's like, what did you do? What really happened? Because King wouldn't threaten you for not shooting someone, so what did you do? Vontae confesses to stealing money from King so he could buy his family bus tickets to get them to safety. Because if Vontae killed the people that killed his brother, the rest of the gang would have circled back for his mom and his sisters. And to protect his sisters, Vontae's mom kicked him out of the house, so now he's asking Big Mav for help again. And as hard as it is for Mav to not be mad and frustrated, he helps Vontae anyway. This man in his heart of gold and his patience, it kills me, it kills me. The family ends up taking Devontae to Uncle Carlos's house. And Devontae realizes that Uncle Carlos is a cop and he's not too keen on staying here. He's like, this smells like a stunt. But Star reassures him that he'll be safe here. And Uncle Carlos backs up Star's claim. He's like, yeah, I'm not even allowed to question anyone while I'm on leave. And Star was like, wait, why are you on leave? What's going on? But he won't tell her why. The way this family came together to protect this child will never fail to get a tear out of me. Angie, let me get up. So Chris comes over during all this, and Star realizes, hey, I cannot hide him from my dad forever, so now's the time. So Star introduces Chris to her dad. And yeah, how do you think that went? Maverick is pissed, especially about the fact that Lisa and Carlos knew, but he knew nothing. Chris is confused about his being white, you know, being an issue. And he's like, is this one of those black things that I will understand? First, watch your mouth. And Star's like, not so fast. I'm pretty sure you had a conversation with your parents because I'm black, so let's not go there. So Lisa and Maverick are arguing outside at first about Chris, but then Lisa tells Maverick that she's mad because you didn't hesitate to take Devontae out of the hood and put him in the suburbs, but you won't even do it for your own children. After Lisa, Mav, and Chris leave, Devontae decides to put in his 2 cents on the whole situation. First, for Star dating a white boy, and second, he's like, you're big Mav's daughter. You got so much respect back in Garden Heights, and you can literally have any guy you want. They get to talking some more, and it turns out Devontae knew Khalil too, and he tells Star that Khalil always talked about her. And this reminds Star, oh, they might have been gang banging together. But then Star is immediately proven wrong when Devontae tells her that he was never a King Lord. He even tells Star that King tried to recruit Khalil, but he declined. And the real reason why Khalil was even selling drugs in the first place is because his mother stole from King, so he was trying to pay her debt. The child taking care of the parent. And of course, Star feels terrible for even thinking for a second that her best friend would become a gang member. And she wonders if the public would shift their opinion too if they knew the real reason why Khalil did what he did. Chapter 14, and this is right after Devontae and Star have their conversation. She gets up and goes on a walk in the neighborhood, and she wound up at Maya's house, and guess what? Haley's there too. Haley has the audacity to ask why Star is mad at them. Haley, do not piss me off, okay? And Star's like, cause you went to that whack ass protest and participated in it. And she was like, okay, well, I don't feel like I should apologize for protesting when everyone else is doing the same exact thing. So what's tea? And Haley has the gall, the nerve to say that Star owes her an apology for calling her racist. Because you self-important little bitch, you are! And Star tells Haley, even though you didn't mean it, the joke was still racist. Like, there's no changing that. Haley, still being ignorant, does not apologize. So the girls table the conversation for now, and they're watching TV, and as Maya is flipping through the channels, they pass an interview, the interview with 115. I have to read y'all this part. I have to. Back up, I tell Maya. She flicks through the channels, and when he appears again, I say, right there. I've pictured his face so much. Actually seeing it again is different. My memory is pretty spot on. A thin, jagged scar above his lip, bursts of freckles that cover his face and neck. My stomach churns and my skin crawls, and I want to get away from 115. My instinct doesn't care that it's a photograph being shown on TV. A silver cross pendant hangs from his neck like he's saying Jesus endorses what he did. You must believe in a different Jesus. What looks like an older version of him appears on the screen, but this man doesn't have the scar on his lip, and there are more wrinkles on his neck than freckles. He has white hair, although there's still some streaks of brown in it. My son was afraid for his life, he says. He only wanted to get home to his wife and kids. Pictures flash on the screen. 115 smiles with his arm draped around a blurred out woman. He's on a fishing trip with 2 small blurred out children. They show him with the smiley golden retriever with his pastor and some fellow deacons who are all blurred out, and then in his police uniform. Officer Brian Cruz Jr. has been on the force for 16 years, the voiceover says. And more pics of him as a cop are shown. He's been a cop for as long as Khalil was alive, and I wonder if some sick twist of fate Khalil was only born for this man to kill. A majority of those years have been spent serving in Garden Heights, the voiceover continues, a neighborhood notorious for gangs and drug dealers. I tend to footage of my neighborhood, my home is shown. It's like they picked the worst parts. The drug addicts roaming the streets, the broken down Cedar Grove projects, gang bangers, flashing signs, bodies on the sidewalks with white sheets over them. What about Mrs. Rooks and her cakes? Or Mr. Lewis and his haircuts? Mr. Rubin, the clinic, my family, me. I feel Haley's and Maya's eyes on me. I can't look at them. My son loved working in the neighborhood, 115's father claims. He always wanted to make a difference in the lives there. Funny, slave masters thought they were making a difference in black people's lives too, saving them from their wild African ways. Same shit, different century. I wish people like them would stop thinking that people like me need saving. 115 Senior talks about his son's life before the shooting, how he was a good kid who never got into trouble, always wanted to help others. A lot like Khalil, but then he talks about the stuff 115 did that Khalil will never get to do, like go to college, get married, have a family. The interviewer asked about that night. Apparently, Brian pulled the kid over because he had a broken tail light and was speeding. Khalil wasn't speeding. He told me, "Pop, as soon as I pulled him over, I had a bad feeling," says 115 Senior. Why is that? The interviewer asked. He said the kid and his friend immediately started cursing him out. We never cursed. And they kept glancing at each other like they were up to something. Brian says that's when he got scared because they could have taken him down if they teamed up. I couldn't have taken anyone down. I was too afraid. He makes us sound like we're superhumans. We're kids. No matter how afraid he is, my son's still gonna do his job. And that's all he set out to do that night. There have been reports that Khalil Harris was unarmed when the incident took place, the interviewer says. Has your son told you why he made the decision to shoot? Brian said he had his back to the kid and he heard the kid say, "I'm gonna show your ass today." No, no, no. Khalil asked if I was okay. Brian turned around and saw something in the car door. He thought it was a gun. It was a hairbrush. His lips quiver. My body shakes. He covers his mouth to hold back a sob. I cover mine to keep from puking. Brian's a good boy, he says in tears. He only wanted to get home to his family, and people are making him out to be a monster. That's all Khalil and I wanted, and you're making us out to be monsters. I can't breathe. Like I'm drowning in the tears I refuse to shed. I won't give 115 or his father the satisfaction of crying. Tonight, they shot me too, more than once, and killed a part of me. Unfortunately for them, it's the part that felt any hesitation about speaking out. How has your son's life changed since this happened? The interviewer asked. All of our lives have been hell, honestly, his father claims. Brian's a people person, and now he's afraid to go out in public, even for something as simple as getting a gallon of milk. There have been threats on his life, our family's lives. His wife had to quit her job. He's even been attacked by fellow officers. Physically or verbally? The interviewer asked. Both, he says. It hits me. Uncle Carlos's bruised knuckles. That's awful, Haley says. That poor family. She's looking at 115 Senior with sympathy that belongs to Brenda and Miss Rosalie. I blinked several times. What? His son lost everything because he was trying to do his job and protect himself. His life matters too, you know. I cannot right now. I can't. I stand up, or otherwise I will say or do something really stupid like punch her. I need to, yeah. Hey guys, just popping in. I need to tell you something. So from this point on, the video is going to be a little out of focus. I just noticed this with the remaining footage that I have as I'm editing this video. So yeah, the video is a little out of focus and I did not know that. No, I will not go back and refilm this because this took me 3 hours to film. So absolutely not. And yes, I have been working with this camera for 3 years. You'd think I know how to make sure my stuff is in focus. Apparently not. But yeah, so if that's going to be distracting, just know that it was an accident. Okay, love ya. Back to the video. I say all that I can and start for the door, but Maya grabs the tail of my cardigan. Whoa, whoa, you guys haven't worked this out yet, she says. Maya, I say as calmly as possible, please let me go. I cannot talk to her. Did you not hear what she said? Are you serious right now? Haley asks. What's wrong with saying his life matters too? His life always matters more. My voice is gruff and my throat is tight. That's the problem. Star, Maya says, trying to catch my eye. I look at her. What's going on? You're Harry in Order of the Phoenix angry lately. Thank you, Haley says. She's been in bitch mode for weeks but wants to blame me. It's about to go down. So Star finally confronts Haley about her unfollowing her on Tumblr. Haley deflects, trying to play victim as, you know, Karens do, and crying about Star calling her a racist, which Star never actually verbalizes. Haley claims she unfollows Star because she doesn't know who she is anymore. Get the out. Get the out now. After Haley storms out, Maya's like, girl, the real tea is Haley unfollowed you because she didn't want to see that black stuff on her timeline. So Star is mad. Rightfully so. And Maya knew about this and is just now telling her. And Maya says this isn't the first time that Haley said some up racist shit. Haley once made a comment about Maya, who is Asian, and her family eating cat for Thanksgiving dinner. The two then agreed to always call Haley out on her racist bullshit and not take her comments any longer. So Star goes back to Uncle Carlos' house to confront him and ask him straight up, so where did you hit 115? Knowing he can't lie, Carlos admits that he put his hands on 115 after he found out that he pulled his gun on Star. And he feels guilty for not doing more to help Khalil, and he tells Star that he would have never done anything like that to Khalil. Chapter 15, Lisa and Star are at IHOP and Lisa knows something is wrong with her baby girl. Star tells her mom, well, it's not true. Khalil wasn't a king lord after all. Lisa said that it wasn't her fault that she didn't know, and she also knows that Star had a little crush on Khalil. And Star also tells her mother that she feels guilty because she's dating Chris. Star also talks to her mom about how now she is questioning her friendship with Haley, and Lisa tells her to make a pros and cons list of their friendship. And she tells Star that she needs to figure out if Haley's mistakes outweigh the love that Star has for her. The next day, Star and her mom go to the DA's office and Miss April is there too. Star begins her conversation with the DA, and when she's beginning to mention Khalil, it makes her sick, literally. So Lisa takes her to Mav so he can watch over his daughter, and these two are still beefing, by the way. So Maverick asks Star, you know, why are you dating Chris? I'd be lying if I said my family didn't ask me the same question. He tells Star that he's concerned about her dating Chris because girls usually pick guys that remind them of their father. And Chris is white. And he thinks that because he was a gangbanger and that he went to jail, that he didn't set a good example of what a man should be, or what a black man should be. Star reassures him and says, you're the best example I had for a man, period, skin color be damned. So at that moment, King pulls up to the store and he hides Star in the store office. King has come to threaten Maverick because Star testified. Mav said, not too much, you forgot who the hell you talking to. So after that, they go home and the family is having dinner, and Mav announces that, hey, y'all, it's time to move. Lisa's concerns finally got through to him. Like, it took your daughter's life to get threatened for y'all to move at that damn... Let me stop. This makes Lisa so happy that she takes Maverick to their room and she put it down. Seven is opposed to moving because he doesn't want to leave his sisters and mom alone with King. And Star feels some type of way again because that's good and well and all that stuff, but like, I'm your sister too. Now we are in part 2. 5 weeks after it. Chapter 16, and Star's telling us that Miss April sent her a limo to take her to her broadcasted interview, the anonymous one. The whole hood shows up for Star to support her. I told y'all, the tree run deep. It's time for the interview, and Star's parents and April are right there with her. The interview asks Star about Khalil, and this sweet, sweet child only says the nicest thing about her dearest friend. And the main thing that Star hammers down on is that Khalil was a nice kid. The interviewer, bringing out her ruthless journalism, was like, so what about the part about him being a drug dealer? This riles Star up again, and against April's advice of not bringing up the drug dealing beforehand, Star says people wouldn't judge him if they knew why he did it. And she goes ahead and tells all anyway. She also tells the truth of what happened that night with 115. And in her head, Star knows she's openly putting herself into harm's way because she is dry snitching on TV. The interviewer then asks Star if she has anything to say to 115, and this is what she says. I'd ask him if he wished he shot me too. Talk your shit, Star. Chapter 17 in Star's interview is being received very well, and people are showing their support. Even Kenya is glad that she finally spoke out, but not without giving her a backhanded compliment. Who needs enemies when you have friends like Kenya? It's the night after the interview airs, and Star is going to prom. Aww. And now Haley is acting funny because she found out that Maya told Star the real reason why she was unfollowed on Tumblr. And she knows she's in the wrong because why are you ignoring them for something that you did? Star and Maya are like, girl, whatever. We at prom, we finna have fun. And then Haley gonna have the nerve to walk by them and mean mug them. Get a life, get a clue. And it's not just Haley. Chris is over here acting funny too, but Star doesn't know why. And then you came at her crazy as who the fuck? Who you talking to? Not our Star. You can't be talking to our baby girl. So now Star is pissed and she stormed out of there and she goes to the car and Chris follows her. And Chris is mad because he wants to know why Star didn't tell him that she was the witness. And she was like, how did you know it was me? He said, baby girl, I recognize your voice anywhere. He kind of ate with that. He would have got me with that. But Star ain't on that time, and she's like, so just because I don't tell you about one of the most traumatic experiences of my life, that gives you the right to throw a hissy fit? And not only that, something like this has happened not once but twice. And Chris is butthurt because she keeps the Garden Heights part of herself hidden, and he wants to know and love all of her. This is sweet in theory, but Chris, there's this thing called a boundary. He's whining like, why don't you trust me enough to show me who you really are? Like, this is not, why are you making it about you? And Star tells him why, and she's like, I don't want to be seen as the black girl from the ghetto, and that's why I don't share this stuff with you. And she's afraid that Chris would one day use this against her, and he swears up and down that he wouldn't do that. So Star finally decides to open up to Chris and tell him about Natasha and then Khalil. They make up and kiss, whoop-de-doo. And 7, playing Big Brother, interrupts their kiss. Okay, I gotta read this part because it's funny. Sorry. 2 loud knocks against the window startle us. 7 presses his face against the glass. Y'all better not be doing nothing. The best way to get turned all the way off, have your brother show up. 7, leave them alone, Layla whines behind him. We were about to dance, remember? That can wait. I gotta make sure he's not getting some from my sister. You won't get any if you don't stop acting so ridiculous, she says. I don't care. Star, get out this car. I ain't playing. Only brothers. Only brothers. So this chapter comes to a close with Chris making a request to the DJ, and he sings the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air theme song to Star in front of the whole school. And for a little while, Star has finally found a respite. Chapter 18, and Lisa and Maverick have taken the kids to a neighborhood called Brook Falls. Star takes notice of how much safer it feels and that there's no racial barrier here. It's very diverse. Lisa and Maverick brought the kids here to tell them that this will be their new home. Sakani asks his dad, you know, if he's gonna be okay living in the fake. Mav says living in a nicer place doesn't make you any less real. And what's most important is protecting his family. There you go. You finally got it through your head, but you got there. So now the kids are frolicking in their new home, fighting over who gets the bigger room. Later that night, the family's eating dinner in the new home, just like, you know, have a little kumbaya situation. And Lisa tells 7 that, you know, even though you're going off to college, you can do your room up however you want it. And then Sakani, being the youngest sibling, he snitches on 7 and says, oh, Sakani's not going to college. He's going to the junior college back in Garden Heights. Mav and Lisa are mad. Okay, they mad because 7 could potentially be giving up better opportunities afforded by the other schools he has applied to. 7 says the reason why he is going to a junior college in Garden Heights is so he can stay close to his mom and sisters and protect them from King. So they go back home to Garden Heights, and the family, they're in the living room watching a game when gunfire rains down on the house. It was a freaking drive-by and someone threw a brick through the window. Maverick then calls Uncle Carlos to bring his ass out there, and Star cannot help but feel that those bullets in brick were meant for her. When Carlos gets there, he asks Maverick if he called the police. He said, hell no, because how do we know it wasn't them trying to shoot up the house and throw a brick in my daughter's head? Uncle Carlos bites back and he was like, well, maybe it was the King Lords. Did you ever think of that? Lisa steps in. She's like, it doesn't matter who did it. The top priority right now is protecting Star. Star chimes in. She's like, listen, the only way that I can protect all of us is if I don't testify. And it's right here where Mav makes Star recites point 1 and point 7 of the Black Panther's 10-point program. I will say the movie did this scene better. That scene ran chills down my spine. Maverick also makes Star recites the Black Panther's objective, which is complete freedom, justice, and equality by any means necessary. Mav uses this as a push for Star to keep using her voice and keep fighting for justice for Khalil. And Star isn't fully convinced about this 10-point program because, you know, the government disbanded the Black Panther Party and Huey P. Newton died a crackhead. So later on, 2 King Lords show up at their house at the behest of Maverick. His legendary gang status grants him respect throughout the streets. So they are here to protect the house until the next day. And these are different types of King Lord because they're not under King's thumb, so they cool, I guess. Uncle Carlos does not approve, so him and Mav get into it. And Uncle Carlos says, I will not be coming to the courthouse if you got them with you, because the trial or whatever, the grand jury thing, it's the next day. Maverick calls Carlos out, calling him a punk because he's a cop that can't even protect his own family. Carlos said, hold on, ho. I raised your kids while you were locked up. Don't forget that. Chapter 19, this chapter's pretty simple. It's the big day, you know, everyone's going to the courthouse, and somehow Carlos and Maverick have put aside their differences. They get to the courthouse and it's surrounded by supporters, you know, there for Star and Khalil. And this chapter comes to a close with Star being sworn in and preparing to give her testimony. Now we're in part 3. 8 weeks after it happened. It's chapter 20 now, and Star is heavily anticipating the grand jury's decision. She's trying her best to live life until the other shoe drops. She's at school when she sees Maya talking to Haley, and she approaches them, and immediately Haley is on some bullshit. So Haley is calling Star a liar because she found out that Star did know Khalil when she told them that she didn't. And thank goodness Maya actually backed Star up right here and called Haley out for being racist. And Star tries to tell her, she's better than me. She tries to tell her how she can fix this and learn from this, but Haley is still being ignorant and racist. And Haley says the one thing that racists love to say, get over it. So what does Star do? She decks that bitch. They get to scrapping. And then Haley's brother gets in the mix and puts his hand on our Star. And then here comes Seven with the hands, because don't put your hands on his sister. Now I will pause in the middle of the review and say this. I wish we had this scene in the movie in place of, like, you know, Star swinging the hairbrush at Haley. I mean, I'm not saying it wasn't good, but like, I wanted to see Haley pay reparations in real time. Long story short, Star and Seven get suspended. And Lisa is pissed at her children because they fulfilled the stereotypes that people have on them already, them going to that school in the first place. Star's anger and grief reach a boiling point, and she takes it out on the dashboard of her mother's car. So when Star gets home, she sees the house is full of garden disciples and King Lords, and she's confused. And the reason that they're there is because Mav called them to meet so they could place a truce, make a truce, especially if the jury decides not to indict 115. And Star's parents don't condone what their children did today, but they are proud of them for sticking up for what's right and defending each other. Now we're in part 4, 10 weeks after it. Chapter 21, there's still no decision, so Star keeps on keeping on. They're throwing a birthday / graduation party for Seven. They all having a little barbecue at Uncle Carlos's house. house. And it seems like Devontae is doing good there with Uncle Carlos. Chris and Maya pull up and they finally meet Kenya. They tell Kenya about Star's fight and she is so proud of her. This little interaction has Star feeling a little bit better about her worlds overlapping. Because nothing good can ever last, Aisha pulls up to the party causing a scene. Turns out Seven didn't invite her and now we know why. Seven lashes out and says, "Lisa's my real mama, you don't even care about me." And Aisha is obviously upset, you know, about this, and she wishes violence on the Carter family, you know, by way of the King Lords. But with a little family love and support, they're able to save the party and have a good time. Now we're in part 5. 13 weeks after it, the decision. It's chapter 22. Star and her family have moved into their new home and she gets a call from April. She tells Star that the decision will be made today. Star texts Chris and he comes to pick her up. So now they're hanging out at his house. Parents are away and she tells Chris that she doesn't think that the jury is gonna decide to indict 115. And then she asks Chris, "Why are you dating me and not some perfect little white girl like Haley?" And he's like, "Girl, what?" And he pulls a, "I only want you, baby girl." Emotions are high and Star decides this is the time she wants to lay down with Chris. Luckily, Chris learned his lesson from last time and he stops Star because he knows that she is in no mental state to do the nasty right now. So Star falls asleep at Chris's house and she is awoken by a very urgent call coming from Seven. And he is panicking because Devontae is missing. Chris takes Star back home and Star, Seven, and Chris head out to go find Devontae wherever he may be at. So the first place they decide to look is King's house because maybe Kenya's there too and she knows where he is. They find Kenya hiding in a room and Devontae is in bad shape. King and his boys jumped him. Kenya even got pushed around a little. They tried to ask Aisha to help them, but it's no use. That evil, she's just evil. Aisha kicks Seven out again, and this time forces him to take his sisters with him. But in reality, she's really trying to save the kids to, you know, from King's wrath. This chapter comes to a crushing close when the kids are in the car listening to the radio and they hear that the grand jury has decided not to indict 115. It's chapter 23 and Star is completely hopeless. She did everything she was supposed to and the justice system still failed her. She is riled up now and she wants to do anything that will make her voice heard, including protest and or riot. Seven and Devontae are right behind her while Chris is a little hesitant, but ultimately he decides to stick by her side. So once they're in the thick of it, of the protesting in the streets, people start to get rowdy and they start rioting again. Star is like, whoa, this does not feel as good as I thought it would. Okay, so the police show up and Star knows where this is gonna go. So the kids decide to head to the store so they can help Maverick protect it. And to ease the tension a little bit, Star, Seven, and Devontae quiz Chris on whether mac and cheese is a main dish or a side dish. And this chapter comes to a close with the children having no choice but to pass through the most dangerous part of the neighborhoods where the riots are active. It's chapter 24 and Seven's car broke down. Oh no. So the guys are pushing it as they are looking for somewhere to get gas. And they happen upon the street Khalil died on and they see more people protesting. Star has flashbacks of that night and she ends up running into April. She then encourages Star to speak up and lead the protest, and her community is right behind her. She also exposes herself as the witness right in front of a news crew that is broadcasting the riots and the protesting. This part is so powerful. Like, I remember holding back tears reading this. It gets chaotic real fast and the is getting thick. The kids are directly in the middle of the crossfire and they get tear gas in the face. Somehow the kids finally make it to the store and thankfully it's still intact. And as they're dousing their faces with milk, a Molotov cocktail is thrown through the window and the place is set to flames. Chapter 25, and the kids make a break for the back door, but it's locked, so they're trapped. No lie, I thought they were not going to make it out of this. But just in time, Mr. Lewis and Mav and a couple of garden disciples get the door open and let the kids free. Unfortunately, the store and the barbershop succumb to the flames. King shows up, smug as shit. and turns out he's responsible for the arson. And just when Maverick is about to rip his head off, here come the firemen and the police. They ask what's going on, and the community gathers and collectively snitches on King. And everything turns out okay, except for the grand jury not doing their damn job and the store and the barbershop being burnt to a crisp. But other than that, everything's okay now. Uncle Chris even decides to take in Devontae permanently, and he asks if he can help get some information on King so he'll actually be, charged with something that keeps him in prison longer. And Devontae is hesitant of this because he doesn't want, his protection to be threatened, but Star reassures him to use his voice just like she used hers. Chapter 26, last chapter of the book, and April apologizes for putting Star's life in danger by having her testify and do the interview. Star is able to honor Khalil's memory, and she remembers what he taught her, and she remembers Tupac's message. Star tells us and Khalil that she won't stop fighting the fight, and she promises Khalil that she'll do everything she can do to do right. I must read this last part. I have to. It's just too good. Once upon a time, there was a hazel-eyed boy with dimples. I called him Khalil. The world called him a thug. He lived, but not nearly long enough, and for the rest of my life, I'll remember how he died. Fairy tale? No, but I'm not giving up on a better ending. It would be easy to quit if it was just about me, Khalil, that night, and that cop. It's about way more than that, though. It's about Seven, Sakani, Kenya, Devontae. It's also about Oscar, Ayanna, Trayvon, Rakia, Michael, Eric, Tamir, John, Ezel, Sandra, Freddie, Alton, Philando. It's even about the little boy in 1955 who nobody recognized at first. Emmett. The messed up part, there are so many more. Yet I think it'll change one day. How? I don't know. When? I definitely don't know. Why? Because there will always be someone ready to fight. Maybe it's my turn. Others are fighting too, even in the garden, where sometimes it feels like there's not a lot worth fighting for. People are realizing and shouting and marching and demanding. They're not forgetting. I think that's the most important part. Khalil, I'll never forget. I'll never give up. I'll never be quiet. I promise. And that is the end of The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. Wow, what a story, what artistry, what history. That book is so good. Now that I have gone through the entirety of the plot, it is time for me to share my thoughts and commentary that I plucked from this book. I want to start with the topic of Black identity. This is a very important piece of the story, and Star is our main vehicle for it. We see it a little with Maverick too, but mostly Star. She fears she has to overcompensate for her blackness while also at the same time trying to water it down. When she's in Garden Heights, she's accused of forgetting her roots because of where she goes to school. And when she's at Williamson, she has to tread carefully to not perpetuate any black girl stereotypes. It doesn't help that she's the only other black girl there either. She has to make herself palatable to her non-black friends in order for her to fit in. I couldn't relate to a character more. Oh my goodness. So I've talked about this already on the channel. Here are the two videos where I go into my similar experience. These two videos right here. When it came to identity, Star and I had the same problem. Growing up as the unconventional black girl, I had the fear that I wasn't black enough. I was even told that I wasn't black enough. I also relate to having non-black friends who don't realize how important it is that we as black people, be true to our respective identities and to keep them from being tainted with weaponized rhetoric of this country. I have had friends who have asked me things like, well, what do you mean you can't wear a hood in the store? What do you mean you get nervous around cops? Why can't you just straighten your hair? Like, I've had questions hurled at me like that my whole life, and they just don't understand. And we see that very same interaction take place whenever Star is talking to Chris. Maverick's identity is tied to his hood. He was born there and everything. He's a strong believer in community, and it's a big part of who he is. So when Lisa wants to leave, he sees that as them leaving who they are behind, you know, at their core. A little of this commentary comes from Carlos too, and we see how others in the Black community perceive him because of his line of work. It's like, you know, they feel betrayed in a sense, and I can definitely see how people would feel that way. It's because, like, you know, how do you work for the same people who oppress and kill our children? Moving on to the topic of cyclical and systemic racism. We all know the American justice system was not built for Black people to be safe or succeed. And Angie Thomas does an exceptional job of depicting that at different levels. We see how the cops treat the Black community and their lack of human decency when it came to Khalil's death, a death that happened by the hands of their own. And we see it at the judicial level when the grand jury fails to indict 115. Even though Starr told the truth about who Khalil was as a person and what actually happened that night when he died. And we all know what that was on the grand jury's part, straight up prejudice. And as far as cyclical racism goes, we see how some people carry it and how some people internalize it. When it comes to Haley, it sounds like her parents, you know, filled her head with all those racist and regressive views, thus continuing a very harmful cycle. And we see Maverick teaching his children how to deal with racism because of his past experiences and the people who came before him. Maverick has internalized this in such a way that he not only thinks strategically for his life, but the life of his family. Another thing to add is the Tupac element. You know, we are deep in the cycle and far from change when Tupac's music that came out in the 90s, mind you, is still relevant to this day. Now I want to talk about activism and the power behind using your voice. I want to say so much positivity and change has happened through activism and protesting, but I feel like that's not entirely true. In some cases it has, but, you know, so close yet so far. We have two representations of activism here in the book. We have the Martin Luther King Jr. method and we have the Malcolm X method. We all know that MLK opted for a more peaceful yet strong approach to, you know, changing how us as Black people lived and how we received our equality and our freedom. And then on the other hand, Malcolm X took a more direct approach, you know, for equality and reparations, some of which condoned violence and encouraged violence. You know what he said, by any means necessary. April from Just Us for Justice, she represents MLK's approach, and then the gangbangers and the rioters represent Malcolm X's approach. There's also something to be said about Starr's very brave choice to speak up and speak out. I want to remind y'all that she is a 16-year-old child who saw her best friend get shot and killed in front of her, and that this child also received death threats for testifying. Imagine the pressure on you at that age. It's like, do you speak out for your friend and for your people in hopes of justice and better days, or do you stay quiet to keep yourself safe? I feel like this is something that Black people have grappled with at least once in their life. At least I can say that for myself. Quick little story time, I promise it's related. Shortly after the death of George Floyd, a group of people in my very small country conservative town organized a peaceful protest. I went, and when the protest started, I was the first to speak. I think I was 18 at this time. I was using my voice to speak out and just, you know, say how I was feeling, because I was tired of losing my people to the racism in this country. But all the while I was speaking to my community, a sniper was watching me from across the way on top of a building. Yes, you heard me right. There was a gun aimed at me and the rest of the peaceful protest attendees. I didn't do anything but speak my truth, and it felt good. And it's true what they say, you know, there's power in words. And can you imagine if we all collectively used our voices, the change that would be enacted would be astronomical. Okay, now that I've done my commentary and my thoughts, This would usually be the part of my video where I would do the dream cast. Now, if you're new here, I usually do a dream cast for my Reading Rouge videos because I put it like this. If the book is good and interesting enough, I can see it playing out in my head like a movie. And I'm like, hey, if this was a movie, who would I put in it? Being that an adaptation for this already exists, I'm gonna focus on that. First, let's address the elephant in the room. Amanda Stenberg. I've said this multiple times on the channel before, but in the 2010s, Miss Thing was everywhere. You could not escape her. She was like the plague. She was in 3 book-to-film adaptations that I know of. I don't know if she was in another, but she was in 3. Hunger Games, Everything, and The Hate U Give. If you remember, and if you were there, you know there was an uproar all over social media when the visuals for this movie dropped. The main outcry being that Amanda did not resemble Bookstar. For reference, this is Amanda, okay? This is Bookstar. This is the cover of the book. As you can see, Bookstar is a dark-skinned black girl, and Amanda is a biracial, light-skinned black girl. Now, obviously, I was not tuned in when this was happening because I just now read it for the first time 8 years later. But looking back on it, I fully understand why people were upset. Especially people who, you know, said the book really resonated with them. Colorism is still alive and well, unfortunately, in the black community. And just in general, and Hollywood has a habit and has not shied away from whitewashing characters, especially the black ones. So when you put a visibly light-skinned actress in a role that is supposed to depict a dark-skinned black girl, yeah, people are gonna be mad. They're gonna have something to say. Whenever Hollywood does this, I feel like they're saying, here, damn, she's black enough. We have spent years fighting for proper representation of dark-skinned girlies, and then like this happens. And I'm gonna mention Zendaya briefly, and this is the very reason why Zendaya, you know, passes on certain roles when it comes to like black characters, because she is fully aware of the privileges she is afforded because she is a light-skinned black woman. She's also biracial. She doesn't want to take the opportunity for representation away from actresses who better fit the role. And I have no ill feelings. I know I'm like basically almost 10 years late. I have no ill feelings toward Amanda for taking this role. I think she was outstanding. She delivered a beautiful performance as Star, but I for sure 100% understand the uproar. Now, if I had the chance to cast Star, these are a few examples of who I would choose: Ryan Destiny, China Anne McClain, or Io Adebari. Speaking of casting, can we talk about who played King in this movie? Listen to me. I love Anthony Mackie, I do. But this casting was a misfire. Just like when he was cast as fucking Tupac in the Biggie movie. Like, what were they thinking? He just didn't have that intimidating and dangerous air that King carried with him in the book. Now, if it were me, I would have went with Ice Cube, Sterling K. Brown, Derek Luke, freaking Tyrese Gibson, but Ice Cube is my #1 choice for King. And for those of you who have both read the book and seen the movie, you know that someone is missing. For those of you who don't, here comes a spoiler 8 years later. Devontae is not in the movie. Damn it! When I watched this for the first time, I said, I know damn well they didn't cut out my boy Devontae. I understand that this book is nearly 450 pages. You can't include every little thing or else the movie's gonna be 6 hours long. I understand that. But Devontae's arc was so intriguing and interesting. Like, why do we not have that? Now, if we did have Devontae, I would have casted Jabari Banks or Ashton Sanders. Those were my 2 picks. We should have had Devontae. Like, we should have had Devontae. We still could have had the 2-hour, you know, run time with Devontae. But yeah, that's my rant about the movie since there's no Dreamcast because the movie already exists. I will say this though, I watched it for the second time right before I filmed this video, and it's stuck on me. I enjoy that movie. Other than my, you know, few gripes that I have with the movie, I think it's great. I think everyone played the shit out of their roles, especially Big Dog who played Maverick. His name is escaping me, but he was the perfect Maverick. He was exactly who I envisioned when I was reading about Maverick. I said, that's him. That's him in real life. I will say this though, this movie has come to mean a great deal to me. And yeah, I watched it for the second time right before I filmed this video, like a day before I filmed this video, and it got me. It's such a good story. And this is definitely on my favorites list now, so yes. If I had to rate this book, I would give it an 11 out of 10. It means a lot that not only I was able to see myself in Star, but to also sympathize with her and go through those emotions with her. Like the story is that good that you're in the moment with Star and you're, you know, experiencing everything with her. And being that this is so based in our reality, in our society today, it makes it even more, you know, groundbreaking and, you know, tangible. So I appreciate this. I always really appreciate this. Thank you, Angie Thomas. So I'm done. That was my reading Rouge on The Hate You Give. Here's my look. It's not my best work, but I mean, I like it, but it probably doesn't look that good to you guys, but hey, this is what we're working with. So that concludes our video for today. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like, and if you made it to the end of this video, comment a rose emoji. I don't know what the next video is gonna be after this. I gotta get this out first and then I'll think about it. Just keep an eye out, you know what to do, and subscribe if you want to. I'll see y'all on the next go around. Okay, bye.